Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Xa Talk Show. Today's topic is Emacs Lisp. So we are going to teach Emacs Lisp in conjunction with Python. So the plan is I'm going to show Python code and how do you do that in Emacs Lisp. So this is going to be for beginners. So you can see if you know Python, you would like it because I'm going to show you how do you do loops and so on in Emacs Lisp, variables and so on. And so let me see if I'm nobody's here yet. I'm surprised. I make sure I am live. Okay. That's strange because I've set this up yesterday. But anyway, so let's do Emacs Lisp. So let me start xa Emacs xa start command log mod. So you can see all my Emacs commands on the left window here, such as forward word, backward word, move cursor down, move cursor up, or beginning of a buffer, or such things like that. All the commands will show up on the left panel. So finally, we got people here. Zitron Crazy, good morning. Benayak, good morning. Panos, good morning. Oleg, good morning. Good morning, guys. So we are going to do Emacs Lisp. Emacs Lisp, great. Emacs Lisp tutorial with Python. Again, keep your comments coming, okay? So because that way I can see it gets the chat more fun. Good morning, Oleg. Good morning, Seamus. So who was it asked for Emacs Lisp with Python? So anyway, so Emacs Lisp with Python. Let's begin. It's always it's always a bit hard to like where do we begin? Okay, so Emacs Lisp with Python. So first of all, I guess I go to my website, Practical Emacs Lisp, and I'm going to show also my Python tutorial website. Python tutorial. So I have this Python tutorial. This is great for beginners. If you don't know Python, check out my tutorial. You can just search for Xali Python tutorial, my name, and you'll find it. And similarly for search for Xali Practical Emacs Lisp. Okay, so that's the Python tutorial, and that's we're gonna start Xa Talk Show today. Focus on Emacs Lisp in Python. So today is going to be technical, very technical, technical topic. Let's restrict ourselves to technical topics. So if you have questions or even Emacs questions, feel free to ask me. Okay, just type it when I'm talking. And I don't have a plan, so how shall we begin? So let's see. Let me show you. How shall we begin? Beginning is always a Python 3 basics. So Python, as you know, you have Python 2 and Python 3, and Python 3 is gaining traction. It's got like 60% usage in industry, so it's good time to start to learn Python 3. But I think I assume you guys already know Python because otherwise I'm using Python to teach you Emacs Lisp, somewhat like that. What about Lisp macros? Okay, I don't actually use Lisp macros myself because I don't like it. And anything, basically almost 99% of things you can do in any programming language you can do without macros. Macros is one of those things that's dramatic. People always like to, oh, Lisp has macros, you need to use macros. And most of the time, I would say more than 50% of the time, when you see macro code in Emacs Lisp, that's unnecessary. It's better to do without. So I'm not going to cover macros because it's kind of more advanced. I'm going to give a basics about Emacs Lisp for beginners, for those of you who have never seen Emacs Lisp before. So okay, so let's just start a buffer. Emacs Lisp. So we start a Emacs Lisp buffer. Let's say we can do message equals, let's say this is how you print in Emacs Lisp. So I just run it. I run it, and you can see the answer at the bottom. It says 1. Okay, so let me start another buffer, and this buffer I'm going to switch to the message buffer. So message buffer, when you print something in Emacs, it prints to the message buffer. So you just, the buffer name is star messages star. So you can switch there. Usually it will print in the mini buffer, but then it'll disappear after a second or so. But you can always see the whole thing in message buffer. Message buffer is they score off, so it's kind of like just not, it's not permanent. And of course you can print to another buffer if you want it permanent. But anyway, so first of all, before we do anything, I'm going to base on kind of my tutorial, this talk on my own pages, my Python tutorial and my Emacs Lisp tutorial. So in this Emacs Lisp tutorial, this first section, Emacs Lisp basics, that's where you want to begin. Okay, just like after the talk, you can read them. Like they have the solid information summarized, in precise and summarized form. Or you can, you should take notes. It's so this is like a lecture. You can take notes. And let me try to, let me try to, be prepared. Get on track. Let's start to talk about it. So Emacs Lisp basics. So okay, first thing, and before you learn Emacs Lisp, if you are using Emacs, you are probably familiar. The first important thing, first thing to know about Emacs Lisp is, let me just write notes. How to eval functions, or how to eval elisp code. Okay, and let me just write it out. And the function, the describe function, let me show you some of the most important Emacs commands you need to know. Because you are going to call them every minutes, every few minutes. Okay, when you code Emacs Lisp. So the first thing you want to learn is how to eval-buffer, how to eval elisp code. So there are several ways. So one of them is, the most important is eval-last-sexp. I'm going to show you how to do that. And then eval-buffer. Okay. Okay, eval-buffer. Okay, so let me do eval. Oh, this is text. Hold on. Close that. Switch. Eval buffer. Okay, this so eval-last-sexp, eval-buffer, these two, and eval-region. Let me just type it out. Eval-region. These three are the most important thing you need to know. These are the ways to evaluate Emacs Lisp code, because you need to evaluate it so Emacs knows about it. And describe function is the most important command. Whenever you have a function, for example, what is eval-buffer, you need to know. then you call describe function, then type eval-buffer, then it'll tell you the documentation for that function. So this is critical. You need to do this every minute when you start to learn Emacs Lisp. So describe function, and let me show you another command that's all critical. So basically, okay, so let me just continue. Eval-list code. So that's all covered here. There are several commands you can use to let Emacs know the function, to evaluate it. But the most important thing is what I said here: eval-last-sexp, eval-region, eval-buffer, and the describe function. Okay, yeah. Let's just cover this. This describe function is the most important. It shows the documentation of a function, and there's another one called describe variable. It is also useful because when you have a variable, let me just show you then. Let's say setq. Okay, setq x equals to 3. Now that's a Emacs Lisp code. You set 3 to x. Okay, now you want to run it. There are two ways. There are several ways. There is eval-last-sexp. Let me just demo that. Eval-last-sexp, that's a command. You put the cursor at the end of the parenthesis and you just call it eval-last-sexp. That is command. You just call it. Now you see the bottom, it says 3. Let me switch buffer. You see it says in a message buffer, you can see it says 3. So that means Emacs know now x is 3. So that is a demonstration of eval-last-sexp. Now in Emacs, many commands has a shortcut. You can call describe function to find out a shortcut. For example, let's call describe function. We are demonstrating several of these things here. So let's call describe function. Okay, I have a shortcut describe function. Let's type eval-last-sexp. Okay, and you see here is the documentation for eval-last-sexp, and it will also tell you what are the key bindings. So so whenever you see a Emacs commands or Emacs Lisp function, you can just call describe function. Then you can learn about the shortcuts it might have, it may or may not have, and the documentation. By the way, if when you start to learn Emacs Lisp, sometimes you don't quite understand what the documentation says because it uses many jargons. But just keep going. Just read a lot, then gradually you'll know. This is common issue. You just keep reading it. So we have showed we have demonstrated eval-last-sexp. Now let me demonstrate, and we have also demonstrated eval function. Let me demonstrate eval variable. So you see we have defined x equals to 3 here. Now if you want to know, suppose you have thousands of lines, you don't know what the variable value is, you want to know, so you call describe var. Okay, describe variable, enter, then type a variable name x. Okay, enter. You see now it tells you x value is 3. Documentation, no documentation as variable. That's normal because we don't have documentation here. So that is a demonstration of describe variable. So again, describe function and describe variable very useful. The two most useful commands you want to know. And okay, so that's covered that. Now let's go back to how to evaluate Emacs Lisp code. So we have showed eval-last-sexp. Let's try it again. So let's try something plus 3 4. Okay. Now I move the cursor to the bottom of the code and I call eval-last-sexp. I have a shortcut. Okay, I press it, and at the bottom you'll see 7. So it's evaluated. You see. Okay. Now, what about eval-region? That's another way to to evaluate Emacs Lisp code. Let's say for example, set x equals to 4. Now I have several lines of code. I want to evaluate them all. So I can select them all and call eval-region. Okay, enter. Now it's done. It's evaluated. Okay, and now if we call describe variable on x again, you see now it says 4. So eval-region is another useful command. Then the last one I'm going to show is eval-buffer, because now I have this buffer. It's already saved as a file name. You see, any one of these, you don't have to, for example, if I open a new buffer which is not saved, I can say setq. I can, for example, I go to this buffer. Let's just go to my HTML file. So I can say here setq x equals to 99. Okay, now I can evaluate that eval-last-sexp. Now it says 99. You see, and I can do evaluate buffer, eval-buffer. That is when the whole buffer is Emacs Lisp code. You want to just eval the whole thing. So I call it. It's done. It just evaluated the whole thing. Now if I call describe variable x, then it says 4 again. Remember, we just made it 99, but now it's back to 4. And this eval buffer is very useful. By the way, for example, if you are let's go to my Emacs init. Okay, so I have so here is my Emacs init. It's my Emacs init. I got bunch of Emacs Lisp. This is very useful. These eval functions. You just added some setting, and you don't want to restart Emacs, so you can just say, for example, if you want to, suppose I just added that. Suppose if you just added that, you can just now call eval-last-sexp. Then Emacs will evaluate this. You don't need to restart Emacs usually, because usually simple settings you don't need to. Sometimes you need to restart Emacs. Well, because there are other code. There's older, because once you run this, some others, it overrides others, things like that. But in general, if you just added some settings, you can just say eval-last-sexp or select it. Suppose I just added this too. Select it, then call eval-region. Or if you just created a new, complete new init, you can say eval-buffer. Okay, that's how you evaluate them without restarting Emacs. Usually restarting Emacs is kind of more clean because it so that's about some of the critical. You are going to use these all the time. So let's move on. Actually, so we have not begun to talk about Emacs Lisp actually yet. But okay, so those things are the critical, the most important. Now there's actually one more thing I want to show you. So let's type it here. So this one is about how do you find out what functions are there. For example, you want a function to you want a function that gets the file name's extension. For example, you have an image, my cat.jpg. You want to get the JPEG part. So what is the function name? Well, normally you go read the Emacs Lisp documentation, 900 pages. I have a link here somewhere. So for example, let's go to elisp basic functions, file the path. So here is about file directory path. Okay, file path functions, file name directory, file name non-directory, file name extension. This is the command you want. So normally you go read the Emacs Lisp documentation. You can access that by calling info, mx info, and that's Emacs Lisp info. Then you can just go to Emacs Lisp documentation. Let's see. So that's Emacs Lisp documentation. I have a HTML prettified HTML version. So anyway, you can read elisp documentation, but usually it's long and it's hard to find. So there is a way to find a if you forgot, you just remember there's a name called file name something. You don't remember exactly. You can call. This is how you find functions. How you search functions. Stock lookup. No, wait, not search doc. Okay, so you want to call apropos command. Actually, yeah, okay, so let me show you. Apropos command, you want to press Control U first, then call apropos command. Hold on a second. So this is a great function you need to know. Apropos command. This is for finding elisp function. Press CU, then MX apropos. That's how you do it. Okay. You press. Okay, so you want to press Control U first. That means universal command. Then you call apropos command. Why? Because that way it will search all functions that contains the name. So let's do it. For example, I press Control U, then I do meta x, then I say file dash name. There's some function that I don't remember the name, but I remember there's a file dash name in it. So I press enter. What? Shadow mode enabled. I don't know what is a shadow. Okay, that's miss. Let's do it again. Control U, meta x, apropos, apropos, apropos command. Okay, enter. Then you type the name. Now I type file dash name. Okay, now Emacs will show me all functions that contains whose name contains file name, the word file name. So now you can look at this, you can scan it, and you can see, you can find all the related functions. For example, the one we want is file name extension. You can press tab to go there, press enter. That's then you are in the describe function box. Then it's a documentation. Then that's the one I need. So that's how you search how you find function. How one of the ways to find function, and one of the most useful way. But otherwise, you can there are other ways. You can, for example, you can start to search. You can start to search Emacs Lisp documentation. You can see on this page I show you how to do that. But typically, apropos is useful. Apropos command. If you do not press the Control U first, what will happen is that it will only search commands, like interactive commands. It will not list file name extension, that function, because file name extension is a function, meaning that it's not a command, meaning that it's not something you can call meta x. If you call meta x and you type file name extension, there's no such command, no match, because it's not a interactive command. It's only for it's a Lisp function you use in Emacs Lisp. So that is why you need to press Control U before you call apropos command. Otherwise, apropos command will just search only commands. So these are actually the most important. So let's begin. Let's begin to actually show some Emacs Lisp. So let me read the comment. Let's see if we are 24 minutes already. Usually this takes a long time to go over. Happy to be here. So let me read the comments. How about this macros? Yeah, okay. So greetings everyone. describe function. Yeah, you can could do that as well. Yes. Uh, that's how you call that as a Emacs Lisp code. Yeah, you are advanced. So so Sima says if equals to 3 message true message. Yeah. So okay, so let's begin with the actual code then. Okay, let's do this then. Let's go over let's try this style. Let's go over Python code, then let's see how we do that in Emacs Lisp. Uh, okay, so Python here is this. Okay, strings. How do you assign a string? String is super easy. Setq is how you create a variable. Okay, setq, then just string something. Okay, that's how you do it. And in Emacs Lisp, remember it's always double quote. There's no variations. Always double ASCII quote, and there's no single quote. Doesn't work. Okay, always that. So let's evaluate eval-last-sexp. You can see in the mini buffer it says something. Okay, let's go to the message buffer. You can also see here. By the way, a shortcut to message buffer is Control H. Control H. Let's try. I don't remember the default Emacs keys because I'm using my own. Let's try. Control H. No, that's incorrect. Control M. View mod. That what? Wait. Let's try it again. I forgot what's a default Emacs command. So let's call describe function view lost. Let me just describe key. Okay, describe key because I'm familiar with my keys. Okay, describe key. Then I press my key for describe. What are we talking about? Oh, view message. Sorry. So describe key. I press my key for the command to pop up the message buffer. Then the command name is view echo area messages. That is the command to switch to the message buffer. Of course, you can just you can always just use normal switching buffer command. That works as well. But this one is dedicated the command to switch to the message buffer, and the default key is CHE. That's right. Control HE. So let's try it. Control HE. Yeah, it pops up the messages buffer. Okay, so yeah, so that we got the string. Now in Emacs, string is just remember always it's very simple. It's just double quote, and if you want the double quote inside, you just escape it with a backslash. Okay, so let's evaluate and let's describe variable x, enter. Then it says x value is x, is that string. Then we can print it. Let's print it message. Let's say x. Okay. Now let's eval buffer. Hold on a second. Now eval buffer. You can see it's printed. Yeah. Okay. So message is a function we want to print something. So that's strings in Emacs Lisp. So substring. Okay, substring is easy. Substring is actually not a function you use often in Emacs Lisp. You can see the function is here, substring. So substring, you give it a string. Let's say A B C D E D. Okay, from 2. Okay, from 0, then optional to let's say 2. Now let's eval-last-sexp. You can see the result is AB. That's the substring. Actually going through Python to teach Emacs Lisp is actually not an efficient way to learn Emacs Lisp actually because Python is a general purpose language. So and Emacs Lisp is not. When you use Emacs Lisp, typically you want to, the purpose is that you want to manipulate buffers, you want to manipulate strings in Emacs Lisp, you want to manipulate cursor position, move cursor, delete the current line, insert a line, switch to a different buffer. Now those things are not in Python, you see, because in Python those are not. Python is not an editor, you see. So when you try to learn Emacs via the Python things, you are not learning what you need to do most of the time in Emacs Lisp, because you are not dealing with buffers and cursors and forward word or delete current word, things like that. Those things are actually the most useful to typical Emacs programmers, Emacs Lisp programmers in Emacs, because that's what most people programmers, you begin with that. Then you can create a major mod, you can create a minor mod, you can create a shell, that's. But those things, create, fontify, syntax coloring a buffer for a new language. Those things are not in Python, you see. So teaching Emacs Lisp via Python is kind of, we can do that, but you are missing, it's not efficient. That's the point, because if you read my tutorial here, you begin right away after you learned about how to evaluate code, what are the basic syntax, the basic syntax for plus minus, arithmetics for converting float to integer, for true false, the basic concept, and how to look up documentation and so on. Then you immediately begin to learn about cursor positions, the concept of cursor positions. That's in Emacs Lisp, it's called a point. Point, that's a function. It returns the cursor position. In every buffer, the first, when your cursor is at the beginning, that position is 0. Now think of a cursor as between characters. That's a technical way to think of cursor position. It's actually between characters. So when the cursor is at beginning, your cursor position is 0, and the function point will tell you what is your current position. Let's try it. Okay, point, point, and okay, we have it. Eval buffer. Wait, hold on. Okay, eval-last-sexp. Now it says 77. You see, because my cursor position right now is 77. Another way to show that is describe char. So I'm going to call describe char. You see, now it says position 77 of 77, because that's actually the last position. So point is a function that returns cursor position. So anyway, so these are the commands that's actually the most useful when you begin to learn Emacs Lisp. But all these things are not in Python, because Python is not dealing with, it's not dealing with editor things. So at this point, should we continue with the Python style? Let's go through Python. This can be fun, but maybe we should just continue, just because just So type your comments, okay? Opinions, comments, type it. Where's Dion? I don't know. My dudes, Dion. Hey Dion, so you are here. Sima says, so why is setq not called set? Okay, the one thing about Emacs Lisp is that when you start to learn, you have all these questions, very valid questions, but actually they are not practical things to know, because if you actually, like, suppose if you really want to be efficient, you just you want to spend let's say 20 hours, in these 20 hours you want to learn the maximum practical Emacs Lisp. You start to write a major mod or something, or some command to manipulate, to refactor your code. Most of you are programmers, to refactor, to help you do something. you want to be efficient in 20 hours, then what you have to do, well, the best thing to do is actually just start to read this. Don't ask any questions that's not there. Just setq, it says setq, just do setq. But okay, that's one way. Okay, but obviously a lot of people will wonder, why setq? Okay, why setq? Why not set? And why not, for example, another question about what is the other question we that just came up? But basically, yeah, Emacs Lisp, it's first of all, it's elisp. It's kind of different from other languages. But then there's also lots of things like becoming started to become technical details. I mean, you can code, actually you can code for 1 year, and you don't have to know why set q not set, because that gets into technical details. Okay, let me tell you why. Because set, because okay, to explain that, drags in the concept of symbols in Lisp language. In Lisp language, you have the concept of symbols, which is not in any language, or basically not in. Well, I guess the only one I know is Mathematica. Okay, Mathematica is considered Lisp. Okay, so in Lisp family you have symbols, but not in any other. Not in Java, C Sharp, C++, JavaScript, Python, Ruby, Perl, Shell, Fortran, Haskell, OCaml, F Sharp, Rust. They don't have symbols. Okay, for example, in Ruby you do have symbols. In JavaScript you also have symbols, but they are like a specific particular type, but nothing like this every variable, everything, right now you see the setq x, the set, every function name, every variable name is a symbol. So we can start to explain what is a symbol. For example, so we are digressing so much, but it's good. Okay, so practical Emacs is, if you go down, you see I put it at the bottom. It's actually kind of advanced. Like you can do Emacs Lisp practically for 1, 2, 3 years without actually understanding what the heck is symbol. Okay, that's true. If you want to be practical and just get on with your, get on with it. On the other hand, now if you are the type of person who are interested in programming languages, in computer science, which is kind of like me and maybe you guys too, then of course then you are interested in what is symbols. That's so fascinating. Why is it, like this kind of question, set n versus set q? Yeah, but okay, that's good. So I'm trying to give I'm trying to give you the picture why, the place of things. Those are not actually practical things. Those are things when you want to learn about, this esoteric language. Why do what aspect in computer science you have symbols? I mean, how it relates to lambda calculus, those kind of, you go that way, then you learn that, that's kind of like that. Or for example, you could learn, the SIP, the book, that anyway, that's not exactly practical things. If you want to be practical, that's, you don't want to do that. But anyway, for symbols, what is a symbol? You see at the bottom, of my tutorial, you can learn about symbols. I explain what is a symbol, what is the concept of Emacs Lisp symbol, and what are special forms. Then what exactly is a function. You start to get into those symbols. So in order to explain what is set versus set q, I don't even have a expansion for set, because nobody ever actually use it. but anyway, so for example, let me show you this. Okay, so let's say set q3. Another way to write it, to do exactly the same thing, is like this. setq apostrophe x3. These two have exact 100% exact outcome. So you have to, so setq is like set quote. So it stands for set quote. So what is a set quote? Quote is a mechanism to get 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 a symbol itself, not the symbol's value. Okay, so set quote actually just means this. So actually, this is a shortcut for. Let me show you. Okay, quote. Okay, so let me show you. Okay, so these three. Okay, these three. This gives you a clear idea of what are the differences. So in the beginning, in the beginning you have these. Okay, set quote x3. What does that mean? You want to set something. The first argument must be a symbol. So you say quote x. Why quote? Why not just, why can't you just say that? Because if you say set x3, then x gets evaluated. Emacs Lisp tries to evaluate x. X may have a value of 4, or it's undefined, nil, or undefined, it's something. So when you do that, x becomes 4, then you try to set 4 to 3. That doesn't work. So that's a problem. So what you need to do is set quote x3. Why quote? Because in Lisp you have the concept of symbols. Everything is, you can have a symbol itself or its value. So now when you say quote means don't evaluate it. Basically, that's the essence. Do not evaluate this symbol. Just return the symbol itself. So now, so when you say quote x, now you are trying to set the symbol x. Now that it works. You see. So for example, we can actually run the code. For example, let's do it. So eval-last-sexp. Now you can see the value here, 4. Then we can describe variable x. It says 4. You see. Now we can, let's do it again. Let's do it again somewhere. Okay. So let's say if we try to run this set x3. Let's run it. Error. You see, debugger entered error. Lisp error. Wrong type argument. Symbol P4. What it's trying to say is that it wants a symbol, but it actually got 4, because Emacs Lisp is trying to run the function symbol P on the first argument. So when you run symbol P on 4, you got an error because symbol P returns true or false. Symbol P, if it's a symbol, then it's true. Symbol P argument, if the argument is not symbol, it runs false. So essentially it says symbol P returns false, and that's wrong because it wants a symbol. So you see so anyway, this is an example of Emacs Lisp error. You will encounter this very frequently when you learn Emacs Lisp. And it shows the error in this kind of strange way. Just keep going. You'll get used to it. You'll start to understand. After a while. So you just you'll see that often. So anyway, so now that if we do this, now remember, let's do describe variable for x. Now current value of x is 4. So now let's run this. Okay. No wait. Okay. Let's run this. So let's run it. Then you see it's 3 again. So you see. So this is actually. So these 3 code. That's what these 3 code are equivalent. These 3 lines of code, and they are about the concept of a symbol. So you see, nobody ever, practically speaking, in fact, in Emacs Lisp code, you will not see this. Okay, you will almost never see set then quote x. You will not see that. You will not see this either. You just see set q x is 3. That's practical. So if you want to get into about Emacs Lisp technical details. That's it's actually not a practical thing. And also about macros, yeah, I remember the macros thing. Lisp macros, Lisp macro is a dramatic thing. Everyone is like, "Oh, what is Lisp macros?" Everyone start to, they among Lisp fanatics, they often say this macro is, you'll hear it, out of proportions like every day on Twitter. Oh, we need this macro. So this macro is so powerful. It changes the world. But actually, it's not that great utility. Okay, and these macros. And to understand these macros, you have to understand this symbol well. Without these symbols, just like the example we explained, but here you need to understand these symbols very well. Then it is possible. Without these symbols, you cannot. It's impossible to have these macros. After you have these symbols, you can have a concept of macros, which is about holding evaluation, basically like rewriting. Anyway, 4 days ago, I did an entire hour about Lisp macros, about Lisp language. Okay, just search, go to my YouTube 5 days ago, something like or last week. 1 hour about Lisp macros. You can try to watch that because if you are interested in computer programming language, language design, that kind of thing, these macros, then you understand, you get a lot understanding because this macro, then you have pattern matching, then you have what's called symbolic pattern matching, then you have what's called uh, computer algebra systems, which you need symbolic pattern matching, which basically you need the concept of symbols. And in turn, Lisp macro is kind of like part of it, is a small part of it. Anyway, so that's about Lisp symbols. Then more technical detail is about Lisp symbol cells because symbols, it's not just symbol and value. Lisp has symbol cells. That's when you get into, anyway, that's not practical. Okay, that's symbols. So that's a giant digression. So 47 minutes. We always So at this point, we can either continue with trying to teach Python. I mean, trying to translate Python code. Where is it? Um, Python code. Yeah, we can continue with this. How to do this Python in Emacs Lisp. Maybe we continue that road. So that today is just in this path. And also, I did a tutorial on Emacs Lisp. I did a few months ago. You can also check them out. 1 hour. As I do these live tutorials, I get better. So the next time I do this, I will immediately skip those questions. So we actually get onto useful. We get into actually useful practical stuff. Immediately skip those questions. Um, so where are we? These symbols, yeah, so actually all these close that, close, what's the function, close. Yeah, so those are advanced. You want to get practical, you want to start to learn about cursors. Yeah, so anyway, so let me read a comment, and maybe we so post your questions, anything you have, and maybe we continue on the road about Python and Lisp. So Nick says, how can you start creating a functionality like go-to definition for Python with for go-to definition? Well, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean go-to definition? Like go-to? Like you mean the programming construct go-to in Emacs Lisp? Nick. So answer, okay. So Dion says, I found out why logical operators for control flow is bad, by the way. Okay, great. So yesterday we talked about that. Yeah. Sometimes when I'm talking, I sometimes when I'm talking with people, usually I don't do well. But I'm getting better. Dion says, chase down that Discord quote you had on your site. Conditional control flow makes program derivation from post conditions and preconditions difficult. Yeah, and it's abuse of operator, because when you read, when you know programming languages, almost everyone, I think it's almost unavoidable that they have words. That is why you have programming style guide. They try to put you in the right path. Because almost any programming language you can write in a convoluted way. That's essentially the essence of those. The reason you are it's possible to write something in a obfuscated or convoluted or golf way is because programming languages, you can abuse them, and achieve the same result. Algorithmically at the end, maybe you achieve the same result, but the path leading to it can be convoluted in arbitrary ways. That is why you have obfuscation, golf, or programming style guide, things like that. So when you want to do flow control, like if something true or false, do this or do that, you can do it in a way using or operator, because one of the issue is that they need to programming language is not formal logic. Therefore, you need to specify the evaluation order. Once you run into something is true, you evaluate that part. You actually don't need to evaluate the rest of it. So, or so the or operator now becomes actually can be used as a flow control. You just evaluate something. Once you evaluate and that is true, don't don't run the rest of the code, the rest of commands. So people do that in shell all the time, and people start to do that in Python. In Python, JavaScript. Like when you have a variable, you don't know if that variable has a value. If it doesn't have a value, you can just say or then give a default value. That's a idiom. But that is a abuse of the or operator. It becomes so common. People don't think that's actually abuse of or operator, because for a programmer, a lot of people into org mod, you are thinking GNU, literate programming. The purpose is that you communicate to programmers as priority, not communicate to the machine code. You communicate to programmers, humans. A lot of people into that, but they fail to see the or operator as abusive. These typical programmers, they don't understand the thing. You see, when you use or operator as a idiom to see which one evaluate, and to see a variable has a value, that's abuse. That's an abuse of programming language. Okay, that's abuse of programming language. So you see, as in terms of a communication, the source code is a communication to human animals, to human. That is not communication. The proper communication when you want to, control flow is if statement. If this variable equals to null, doesn't have a value, then assign it a value. That is actual communication. If something, you tell a human being that the if, then we want to assign. Otherwise, assign it a default value, color equals to red. But when you say or color, then if it's not true, then red. That is abuse. That's not communication. That's logic operator. That's formal logic. Or operator means which one is true. just by chance, by side effect, you are using it as a control flow. That's my point. Anyway, we digressed again so much. Okay, so but still, we did expand some Emacs Lisp. So let's read down about the questions. Um, okay, so actually, okay, next time, I learned, as I improve. Am I still alive? Check, test, test. Okay, I guess I am. Okay, let's read the comments. Uh, why car and not first? Why not? Okay, that's that's you are trolling me. Oh my camel. This digress info so much. Is XR new tag on social media? Is XR's new tag on social media? Translating to. Oh my God, you are awesome. I'm learning a lot with website and videos. Thank you. What is difference between message and print? Okay, Simon asked, what's the difference between message and print? That's okay. That's kind of also advanced, but that's a good question. So message. Now message is the one you want to use the most of the time, especially when you are starting to learn Emacs Lisp. It just print to the message buffer. Okay. Now message buffer is a special buffer for output. Um, but sometimes you want to use print. Okay, it's a print is actually the proper way. Okay, print is actually more proper when you want to print something. Now, typically when you say print, print some something, it also prints to the message buffer. You see, it also print to message buffer. But however, you can with temp buffer. Okay, so with temp buffer, let me show you. For example, you can print to a different buffer. For example, with temp buffer, let me just show something. With temp buffer, create a temp buffer, eval buffer body. Let's try that. Okay, let's try, just let's see what happens with temp buffer. Print something. Okay, let's run the code. Okay, it still when goes to the temp buffer. But anyway, I have a tutorial here. But anyway, so the print is actually when you want to, you can target a buffer. How do I explain this with temp buffer? With temp buffer, you need okay. So with temp buffer, there are circumstances. Basically, there are actually when you actually need when the circumstances when the situation comes up, you will know. Because when the situation comes up, you know you don't want to print to message buffer. Then that's when you want to use print. And by the way, I also have a tutorial. In my Emacs, there's a print print and output. So this article explains message. Insert is a function when you actually to insert text in a buffer. That's actually more useful. So message and insert is the most useful. Print and variations, you don't actually use that much. That's actually after you don't use that much. But message, you use it all the time, and then you use insert all the time. Insert is for insert into the current buffer. XYZ. Okay, let's run it. You see, now I got XYZ. So you can say switch to buffer. Let's say, let me show you. Let's just show an example. Let's go to my XR talk. Okay. Let's say here. Let's see what is my current position. Let's say describe char. So the current position is 6882. Okay, here 6882. So now close that. So we want to, let's try this. So switch to buffer. Okay, switch to buffer. The buffer name of this buffer is okay. So the buffer name current buffer. Let's just show you some practical. Let's see, eval buffer. Okay, I got a buffer name. So let's see what's it prints in an unreadable way. I guess well, that's a buffer name. So anyway, let me show you this. So I'm going to switch to buffer, give a string, then current talk show, then optional. We don't care. We don't want optional parameters. Okay. Then let's say go to char. Go to char 6884. Okay, which is right here. Okay, right here. Okay. Then we say insert xyz. Okay. Now we want to run these 3 lines. Now remember there's a command eval-buffer, all important. So we do that. We select these 3 lines. We call eval-buffer. Now I have a shortcut, but let's just call meta-x eval-region, not buffer, eval-region. Okay. Now watch that talk buffer. It'll get inserted. Watch that. Do it. You see? You see that gets inserted. So that's that is about the command. That's about the command insert. So it's a way to print. In a way, you can say it's a print function. So message is most important, and the insert is the most important. Okay. There's also print. Not actually used often, but you'll get to it when you need you will know when you need it. Okay. um, yeah, okay, so yeah, I now remember there's a with-temp-buffer. There's a command there's a command called with-temp-output-buffer. Okay, yeah, let me do this. Let me do a demo of that. There is a Emacs function called something like with-temp-output-buffer. So what that function do is that it's like with-temp-buffer. Okay, what that function do is that within that code, when you print something, that something will always go to that buffer. You see, so that is a way to temporarily have a block of a code. Every time you print, when you use a function print something, it will print out to that buffer. So it's kind of like insert. No, it's kind of like insert. But when you use the insert function, it always inserts to the current buffer. So you need to switch to that buffer first. Then whatever you do insert to that buffer. But sometimes you don't want to switch to other buffers. You just want to call a function that always just insert to that buffer. So that here's how you let's do some demo of that. So the function, I forgot the name. You see, so let's remember there's a apropos command. That's how you find the function. So let me do that. Control C, then call apropos command. Okay. Then we call apropos command. Then type a string. So that function is something called with-temp-output-buffer. Okay. So let's type with-temp. Okay. Enter. Then you'll list all functions with that as part of the name. So it's not here. So we have with-temp-buffer window with match it, and with-temp message. Okay, that's not what I want. So let's try it again. Control C. Let's try it again. Control C. Meta X apropos command. So I remember the function name contains the word output. So output, type output, enter. Now let's see. let's see. With output to, there it is. There it is. With output to temp buffer. So this is the one I want. This is the one we want. So let's tap to it and enter, and you'll show the function documentation. So it says with output to temp buffer is a Lisp macro. Okay. Then it says this construct makes buffer name empty before running body. Okay. It does not make blah blah blah. Then it says basically the important thing is anything. So instead of binds standard output to that buffer, so that output generate with print and similar functions will go into that buffer. That's what it is. Okay, let's try this. So let's try this. Let's do a demo of that. Close. So we want that. Okay, so let's give a buffer name. Let's say random. Let's say ABC. So that will actually create a temp buffer named ABC. Okay, then the body. Okay, so let's put the body here. So in the body, let's say print raining today. Okay, so here's the code. We're gonna run it. So this, so look at, let's try to, look at all the windows. Let's see what happens. So eval-last-sexp. Okay, then let's call it. There it is. So you see, it generated a new buffer. You can check the buffer name ABC there. It generated a new buffer, and it just printed what we wanted. Raining today. So that's how you use print. That's how you do it. Oh, okay. So maybe that's it for today. Today we have some random Emacs Lisp stuff. It's still interesting random stuff. So any questions? So we got no more comments. 11 watching. Comments, guys. Comment. Then I think maybe that's it for today. We could talk another 5 minutes. Jump to definition. So forbidden says so. Okay, so yeah, so Nick says like I'm editing a Python script and I want to jump to the place it defines it. Okay, a function of a variable. Well, in Emacs Lisp, that's already built in. That's already built in. So let me show you. Okay, in Emacs Lisp, for example, you want to go to the definition of with-temp-buffer. I mean, with-temp-buffer is already built in. It's a built-in function, but this works for your own code as well. So you want to know, you just call describe variable. I mean describe function. Okay, let's do it. Describe function with-temp-buffer. Enter. Then it shows. You see, it shows the documentation, but it also shows the file where it is defined. So you just move cursor there. You press tab to move the cursor there. Enter. Then it opens the file and put the cursor on the source code where it is defined. So here is where it is defined. This is part of core Emacs. So it's a and by the way, so this is one way to learn Emacs Lisp 2. You can just look up any function. It'll jump to the elisp code. You can see how they do it. But usually this is not for beginners. For the first half a year, this is not a good way because it involves quite a lot of things. So anyway, that's how you jump to function. It's already built in. Just the function name is just describe function. That's how you jump to source code. So you do not have to write it for yourself. That's already built in. if that's your question. Yeah. Uh, let's see. Same thing with variable. For example, let's say, for example, we have already defined x. Remember, we already defined x. So let's say I'm in a different buffer. Let's close this temp buffer. Close that. Let's go and close that. Hello. Let's go to, yeah. So I'm in my talk show page. I want to know. Let's go describe variable x. Okay. Okay. Then it shows x is something something, but it doesn't show me where x is defined. Suppose I want to know where it is defined. I can do that. It doesn't show me right now because so far we have been using eval-last-sexp to evaluate this x. That's why it doesn't show. But for example, let's do this. Okay, so let's comment all this out. Let's comment all this out. Okay, comment it out. So we only have that. Now let's say 60. Wait. Okay, 66. Now let's do eval-buffer. Okay, let's do eval-buffer. Okay, eval-buffer is done. Now let's switch back to my talk show page. Now let's say I'm doing something 1 hour after back from lunch. I want to know where is x defined. Okay, describe variable x, enter. X value is 66. It still doesn't show the buffer. It doesn't show me the file. So actually, let me call eval-buffer directly. So because I was using my own command, let's see. Emacs eval-buffer. Okay, enter. Okay, close it. Now describe variable x, enter. It still doesn't show. Okay, so let's open that again. So if let me show you another way. Let me show you another way. For variable it may be not, but usually it does for functions. But let me show you another way. So let's go to diet. Yeah, the current directory. So this is the file. This is the file. And now let's press capital L. What capital L? Capital L we'll call the command load file, which is kind of equivalent to eval-buffer. Okay. So first of all, let me show you describe key. So let's call describe key. Then I press. Hold on a second. I call describe key. I press the key capital L. Then it says L runs the function dir do load. L runs the function dir do load. Okay, basically it loads the file. Okay, so let's try that again. So let's go to dir. Now I press capital L. It asks me if I want to load that file. I press space for yes. Okay, it's loaded. Now I go back. Now I close this. Go back to my talk show page. Now let's call describe variable. Type x, enter. Okay, it still doesn't show variable where it is defined. Does it show? Yes, I know it does. I guess it does not because okay, let's press on. Let's get that to work. We need to get this to work. So let's try this. Okay, load. I'm gonna do hardcore. I mean, let's go. We need to get this to work. Paste this. Okay, so we are going to call the load command. Load command is when you want to load a file, like eval the whole file, and we give the whole full path. Okay, then we don't need the optional parameters. Okay, so we're gonna evaluate this. Okay, so eval-last eval-last-sexp. So it says error. load file, there's error, wrong number of arguments. Okay, so wrong number arguments. So what was I doing? What? Wrong number of arguments. What? Let's try it again. Eval-last-sexp. Recursive load. Oh shit! Because when I load this, it tries to load this file. Then it's loading that file, that line again. Recursive load. Okay, so now that it's but actually it's already loaded. Okay, it's already loaded. So let's try that describe var again. So let's describe var type x enter. It still doesn't show the it doesn't show the file where it is loaded. So let's try it again. So remove this load line, create a new buffer, paste the load line here. But meanwhile, let's change this to 67. So if it actually loaded, then we know, the value becomes 67. So let's now eval this. Okay, now we can just eval-last-sexp. Do it. It's done. Now describe variable type x enter. It still doesn't give us the file name. Normally it does. Okay, now maybe there's some details I forgot. Well, this getting into details. So why is it not? For example, let me show you a variable. Let me show you why it does. For example, let's go to my Emacs init file. Okay, let's go to my Emacs init file. Go to the directory, then search for settings. So this file, Emacs settings, is all my Emacs core settings. For example, I have some setting of variables. Let's see. There it is. Okay. setq global mark ring max 5. Okay. So global mark ring is a variable. Okay. And I've set it in this file. When Emacs starts, it loads this file. So when I call describe variable on this variable, it should show me this file. So I can jump to it. So let's try it. So describe variable global mark ring max enter. Okay, yeah. So it shows global mark ring max is variable defined in this file simple.el, and its value is 5. Its value is 5. Original value is 16. So I know what's going on now. So let's jump to the file. You see it's there. Okay, so basically Emacs will remember if it's a variable. Emacs will remember the file location if you are using defvar. Let me show you. Okay, defvar. Okay, close this. Wait. What is this? Close this. Okay, here is when it will remember the file location. So suppose we want to do def y. Okay, actually this video is getting long. We want to define a variable y equals to 2. In Emacs Lisp, you do not need to declare variables, but usually if you are writing a mod, usually it's a good thing to define declare a variable. The way you do that is you use defvar. Okay, defvar. So you say defvar y, then optional initial value is 2, and then you give a doc string. This is my y. Okay, so suppose that. Now you can evaluate this. So let's do it. Eval-last-sexp. Evaluate it. Done. Now let's call describe var. Let's call it type y enter. Then so okay, it works, but it doesn't give you the file location. Well, that's maybe because let's try to load file. Let's try load file. Load it. Yes, load the file, and let's describe variable y enter. Now it does. Okay. Now okay, finally y is a variable defined in this file. Now you can just press enter to jump to it. You see? Yeah, so now that's a roundabout. That's okay. That is so if you want a variable such that Emacs jumps to the original definition location, you have to use defvar. And also the way you evaluate this, eval-last-sexp doesn't work because that's usually used for temporary purposes when you are working on a Emacs Lisp. Usually when you use load file, whenever load file is called, that will remember any def var location. That then you call describe var, it will show you the location you can jump to. But you see this anyway. So that's little details. Uh, so let's see. So maybe so that's it. Yeah. So comments. Type your questions. You have 30 seconds. Then we close down in 30 seconds, maybe. Yeah. So Atas Stash says, Nick, do you try to find the library function? Okay, so let's address to Nick. You should install package LP. Yeah, there's some packages you can use. LP go to definition. Well, in Emacs that always work. Okay, you can use describe function. Okay, yeah, let me explain that. In Emacs, if you are coding Emacs Lisp, describe function always work, provided that you are loading, you are using load file. Like if you are like me temporarily coding something, then like if you are always calling eval-region or eval-buffer or eval-last-sexp, those commands are for temporary functions, kind of. So 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 if you do those, then if you call describe function, Emacs may not know what the file or buffer it came from, because those are buffer is not permanent, is not a file. But when you do load, like you jump to the desired file location, you press capital L to load the file, then Emacs will know this is a file. Then when you call describe function, it will show the file name. Okay. So this always work if you work in Emacs, this will work. Now, if you are working in Python, you want to jump to some function's location, then of course describe function doesn't work. Describe function is only for Emacs Lisp code. Then in those cases, yeah, you need some other packages, LP go to or something. Yeah, and how do you write that? You can look into LP go to, but we can. Well, I don't know offhand. You have to think about it. I'm kind of tired now. Uh, so so Siemens says the describe wasn't working before, causing the buffer wasn't written to disk. Yes, and also you have to use defvar. setq won't work. You have to use that. Yeah, that's extra. You have to also use defvar or defcustom. Um, let me say that. So in Emacs, this setq, it'll work, but if you actually try to write something, a project, you typically don't use setq. You never use setq. Okay, you use let. Okay, x then setq x3. Okay, you use that, or you say let then x3 something. Okay, you do either that or that. So you typically don't use setq. Okay, you don't use setq. Setq is like, for learning elisp, that's great. Okay, but usually, so let is creating local variables. Once this is called, x doesn't exist anymore. Let's say h. Okay, for example, let's do this message h. Okay, let's run it. You see it's 3. Now let's say describe variable h. There's no such h. Okay, yeah, because let creates local variables. setq is kind of create a local, it create a variable for the current session. But however, setq is tremendously useful when you are starting to learn Emacs Lisp. Yeah, so so let me make a point. It is tremendously useful because when you do h, when you use local variable, you cannot see it. Like right now, you want to see describe variable h, it's not there. It's it's local. It's already gone. You cannot see it. So when you actually start to learn Emacs Lisp, you do want to use lots of setq. So you can say describe variable, or you can just, let me show you another trick. Okay, very useful. You can just type x here, then call eval-last-sexp. Call it. It shows the value 67. So it's tremendously helpful, because all the value stays. You can see, what's going on, because when you start to learn Emacs, these error messages, syntax error, you get confused. So you just do everything, global, setq, and so on. So you can get idea, maybe something is overriding something, things like that. Then when you are good, once you write a prototype of something you want to do, then you start to define, for example, define, then let x pack, then you start to refactor and pack all your code into a function, and with proper let. And because by that time you already know it works, because you've tried it so many times with so many frustrations. Then now finally you have this beautiful command with clean, and then you put this in your init. So yeah, so that's about setq and let and okay, so what about defvar? Now defvar is actually one level up. Now, as we mentioned, you can have define, that's clean, right? Define, that's a time when you have a define something, you put that in your init file. Then that's good. That's good for you. But now level up, when you want to write your code for the public, for other people, usually you don't tell them to, just put this in your init file, just put this command, just put this define in your init file, because then everyone has thousands of defines, they clash and things like that. So next level is when you want to write a package, then in a package, when you have variables that's intended to be global, sometimes you need that. That's when you use defvar. When you use defvar, you actually declare a variable to be part of the package. Actually, it's global because Emacs does not have namespace. Everything in every package is actually global. So when you want to use defvar, my prefix and something like that. Okay, defvar a variable global for your package name. Then initial value, if it's appropriate, then a documentation. Then this is when you actually have a documentation for your variable. It's not like let. Let doesn't have documentation. This is when you call describe var on a variable, it actually have a documentation. So it's kind of like permanent and not temporary. So yeah, so when you do packages, when you write packages, that's when you want to use defvar. And there's more. There's also actually uh, let's see what are the others. Defcust, uh, uh, defcustom. Okay, defcustom is a way my sum column. Wait, okay, defcustom is another way to define a variable for a package in a package, for public consumption. So what's the difference? It's very similar to defvar. The difference is that when you use defcustom, then people can call the command custom. People can call the command custom group, then type your package name, like some major mod, like my Lisp mod or JavaScript mod. Then people can type a major mod name. Then all those defcustom variables will show up. So this is a way. Custom group is a way for people to customize a package without knowing all the Lisp details. They can just see, oh, these are the variables. You can customize. They have values, they have documentation. So that's about defcustom. So these are the different ways to define variables. Variables, and there's more actually. So there's more. There's buffer local variables, and anyway. So yeah, so that's it for today. I'm getting hungry now. I gotta go eat, and so I've given up on Vim, and not sure what Emacs is using. So yeah, okay. If you like my tutorial, go buy it. I read them, I sell them. I working on them. Go to my website, Xali Emacs tutorial, and buy it. As a token, that you are going to you dedicated you are going to actually start to learn Emacs Lisp, and that's good for me. So anyway, thank you guys for watching. That's it for today, and tomorrow is probably going to be the same time, 12 o'clock noon San Francisco time. And tomorrow, the topics, it could be, I think, what's the topic tomorrow? Today. So tomorrow, let maybe do something else. Golan, I don't know. Pay the piper. Yeah, pay the piper. So I don't know what's the topic yet, but you can always go to, like, let's see, our talk show live. This URL, YouTube see Xali's live. That usually work. Like, I have to go set it up. I have to go. So I'm going to schedule it sometimes later tonight. Or yeah, sometimes later. So by tomorrow morning you'll see it. You can go to that URL. You'll say coming up. At certain hours. Yeah, and then you can type topics or whatever. So that's it for today. So okay, thank you guys for watching. Bye.